I discovered my brother got my wife pregnant. My mother knew everything and covered it up. I secured everything and filed for divorce, then my father delivered the real punishment. Hey everyone! Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. What's up, Reddit? Never thought I'd be airing my personal life online, but here I am, typing this shit out at 3 a.m. because it's been suffocating me for long. I thought I had everything figured out until life decided to slap me with this betrayal. I'm no writer, so bear with me if I stumbled through words. I'm 30 male, a project manager at my dad's solar installation company here in Phoenix. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. Nepotism, baby. But hold up, I earned every damn promotion. Started when I was 15 cleaning solar panels and organizing equipment like some kind of energy grunt. Worked my way up through every aspect of the business. Electrical work, roof installations, inverter systems, battery storage. If it involves making the sun pay your electric bill, I've done it. By the time I hit 24, Dad promoted me to project manager because I actually delivered results. Not because of my last name, but because I could coordinate installation crews, manage project timelines, and deal with city permitting without everything turning into a bureaucratic nightmare. The money's decent too, pulling in around $95,000 annually plus bonuses. Bought my house 3 years before I got married. No debt except the mortgage. Then there's my ex-wife Celeste, 29 female. She works as a nurse, makes about $70,000 a year. Met her at this sports bar near the hospital when she was about to graduate. She seemed like she had her stuff together. Attractive, focused, career-driven. I thought I'd hit the jackpot. Now let me tell you about my family, because understanding them is crucial to this whole mess. My dad Samuel, 56 male, built his company from absolutely nothing. Spent his 20s and 30s grinding. By 40, he was signing commercial contracts for shopping centers and office buildings, and now we've got teams working on multi-million-dollar solar farms. Dad's old school in the best way possible. He believes respect is earned through sweat and results, not handed out like participation trophies. Everything he's achieved came through pure effort, and he doesn't tolerate excuses or laziness. My mom Caroline, 54 female, retired from working in the school district. Now she spends her time shopping with Dad's money and gossiping with her church friends. She acts like she's Mother Teresa, but she'll badmouth everyone behind their backs faster than you can say bless your heart. And then there's my brother Zach, 26 male. Oh boy, where do I even start with this guy? He's the definition of everything that's wrong with my generation. Never had a real job in his life, just waltzed into Dad's office doing basic tasks like scheduling and inventory for $55,000 a year. Dad kept hoping he'd mature and gave him more responsibilities. But Zach acts like he's doing us a favor just by showing up. Remember how I said Dad tried to turn me into a man by having me work installation summers? Same deal with Zach, except it went completely different. Dad put him on rooftop crews starting when he was 16, hoping some hard work would straighten him out. But he'd show up late, complain about everything, and hide in the air-conditioned truck while everyone else busted their butts installing panels in 115-degree heat. I'll never forget when he was 19 and they put him on a commercial rooftop installation in July. Lasted exactly 2 hours before claiming he was getting heat stroke and needed to go home. Meanwhile, the rest of us finished a full 10-hour day. Dad was so embarrassed when the crew started making jokes about his delicate son. While I was learning every aspect of solar installation and proving myself, Zach was playing video games and spending money he didn't earn. When I bought my house, he made sarcastic comments about how lucky some people are. When Dad promoted me, he claimed it was pure favoritism, completely ignoring the decade of hard work I'd put in. 2 years ago, he got himself into financial trouble. Credit cards maxed out, car payments he couldn't afford. Typical living beyond your means stuff. Dad lent him $20,000 with a 2-year payback plan. Zach made exactly 3 payments before the excuses started flowing. By the time our story really begins, Zach was driving a leased BMW that cost more than most people's rent, wearing designer clothes and acting like some kind of executive when he was basically doing data entry. Mom would praise him for showing up to work 5 days in a row while I was closing an $800,000 commercial solar installation. Looking back, I can see all the warning signs were there. But when you're grinding 70-hour weeks trying to build something meaningful, you don't always notice the snakes in your own backyard. January 2023 started with what should have been the highlight of my career. Dad landed the biggest contract in company history, a complete solar installation for a new downtown Phoenix medical complex worth $6 million. This was the kind of project that could set us up for life and open doors to even bigger opportunities. Dad assigned it to me. The demands were absolutely brutal, though. Strict medical facility regulations, daily inspections, zero tolerance for delays. I'm talking about installing solar systems on an active hospital where one electrical mistake could literally endanger lives. I practically moved into that job site, 12 hours minimum every day, including weekends. Sometimes I'd be there from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. The technical challenges were intense. Medical facilities require redundant power systems, so we were installing both rooftop solar arrays and ground-mounted backup systems. Every inverter had to meet hospital-grade specifications. The battery storage systems needed seamless integration with emergency power. It was precision engineering with people's lives depending on getting it right. Celeste was understanding at first. She'd even bring me dinner sometimes, showing up in her scrubs with takeout from whatever place was still open. She knew this contract could change our future. We were planning to use my bonus to pay off the house completely and start looking at investment properties. But then slowly, when I was buried in electrical diagrams and installation schedules, Celeste started going out with this traveling nurse named Melissa. According to Celeste, Melissa was single, fun, and knew all the cool spots in Phoenix. Suddenly, my wife was hitting the town 3 times a week instead of our usual Netflix and chill routine. I should have paid more attention, but I was completely consumed by the project. It just seemed like she was making the best of a situation where her husband was basically married to his job. The first real sign something was off came in February. Celeste had always worked a predictable schedule, 3 12-hour shifts per week, usually Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. It was routine we'd built our married life around. I knew exactly when she'd be home, when we'd have time together, when I could plan around her schedule. But suddenly, she was covering extra shifts constantly, mandatory training sessions that supposedly appeared out of nowhere, emergency situations at the hospital that required her specific expertise. Her base schedule stayed the same on paper, but she was actually working 5 or 6 days a week. Around the same time, Zach started showing up at our house when I wasn't there. I'd drag myself home exhausted at 8 p.m., and Celeste would casually mention that Zach had stopped by. He'd brought her coffee from some fancy downtown place, or helped fix something around the house that I hadn't had time to deal with. At first, I thought it was actually positive. Zach was finally acting like part of the family. Even at work, he seemed more professional, dressing better, showing up on time, volunteering for weekend tasks. Dad mentioned it several times, saying maybe Zach was finally growing up. Wrong. Then suddenly the fight started. Celeste started complaining about me working too much. One night, I came home around 9 p.m. after a particularly brutal day. All I wanted was to grab some food, maybe watch TV for an hour, and crash. Instead, Celeste was waiting for me with this attitude that I could feel from across the room. "So this is what our marriage is now?" She started before I even got my boots off. "You come home, eat whatever I've kept warm for you, and then pass out? When was the last time we actually talked, Silas?" I tried explaining that this was temporary, that we already agreed it would set us up financially for years. But she wasn't hearing it. "I didn't sign up to be a single woman while married," she snapped. "Other husbands make time for their wives. Other husbands don't treat their homes like hotels. Celeste, this is a $6 million contract. This is our future we're talking about. Our future. What about our present? I'm 29 years old, Silas. I shouldn't have to beg my husband for attention like I'm some kind of desperate housewife. You're not begging for anything. You knew what this project meant when it started. I knew it would be demanding. I didn't know you'd become a complete stranger who cares more about solar panels than his own wife." She kept arguing, acting like I was deliberately neglecting her, instead of working my ass off to secure our financial future. The problem, though? I was trying my best. I'd try to make time for her, especially on weekends, grab her lunch from her favorite restaurant sometimes, but nothing was enough. By March 2023, we finished the solar installation ahead of schedule and under budget. It was a massive success. We saved $50,000 in costs and earned a reputation bonus that Dad was already planning to reinvest in new equipment. I thought life would go back to normal once I wasn't spending every waking hour at the job site. But normal had been completely redefined while I wasn't paying attention. Even though my workload decreased dramatically, Celeste's schedule stayed just as chaotic. More extra shifts, more training, more emergencies. April hit me like a freight train carrying a cargo of reality checks. With the project wrapped up, I finally had time to pay attention to my actual life instead of just work. What I found was like discovering your favorite restaurant has been serving you cardboard while you were too busy to taste the food. The first major red flag was Celeste's morning routine. She'd wake up at 6 a.m. every day and immediately run to the bathroom to throw up. I'm talking full on, hunched over the toilet, looking like death stuff. Then she'd take these incredibly long showers, way longer than normal. One morning, I got up to check on her and found her pale as a ghost, gripping the toilet seat. The obvious explanation hit me immediately. She was pregnant. We'd been trying since October 2022, so the timing made perfect sense. But when I brought it up, her reaction was pure panic. Not excitement, not happiness, not even nervous anticipation. Just straight up fear. She completely denied the possibility, claiming it was some virus affecting nurses at the hospital. This made zero sense. Since stopping birth control in October, Celeste had been tracking her cycle obsessively on some app. We'd been trying to have a baby, talking about ovulation timing, optimal days, all that stuff without any weirdness. She was 3 weeks late. But when I mentioned this, she went completely defensive. Why are you tracking my period like some kind of creep? I can manage my own body, Silas. That wasn't normal behavior between two people actively trying to become parents. Around the same time, my mom started acting bizarre. Instead of calling our landline like usual, she was calling Celeste's cell phone directly. These weren't quick check-ins either. They were long, whispered conversations that happened when Celeste was alone in the garden or locked in the bedroom. I'd hear fragments like, "You have to be careful with that," or "Make sure everything is controlled." The conversations would end abruptly if I got too close. This was especially weird because Mom and Celeste had barely tolerated each other for 4 years. Suddenly, they were having secret phone sessions that lasted over half an hour. I started paying closer attention to Celeste's work stories, and they stopped making sense. She'd claimed to have covered a double shift, but come home with tons of energy, like she'd been out having fun. She'd talk about assisting in surgeries, but her scrubs didn't smell like disinfectant or have any traces of blood, which was always there after she'd actually been in an OR. The money thing was getting weird, too. I discovered Celeste had been withdrawing $200 in cash every Friday for 2 months. When I asked about it, she said going out with friends had gotten more expensive, and she preferred paying cash to avoid overspending on credit cards. Then there was her phone behavior. Celeste was constantly texting, smiling at her screen in this secretive way, completely absorbed in whatever conversation she was having. But the second I walked into the room, she'd flip the phone face down or slide it into her pocket. The final straw came on a Tuesday in mid-April. My truck wouldn't start, so I had to come home early around 2 p.m. with Rodriguez, one of my installation team leads, who gave me a ride. As I walked in, I heard laughter from the living room. Celeste was laughing in a way I hadn't heard in months. When I walked in, I saw her on the couch with Zach. They were sitting way too close for normal in-law interaction. The second they saw me, they separated like I'd caught them stealing. Celeste looked genuinely surprised and asked, "What are you doing here?" Meanwhile, Zach spilled his coffee all over himself and started stammering some ridiculous excuse about being in the area and wanting to check on Celeste since I worked so much. I just wanted to make sure she was okay. "You've been so busy lately? I thought I could keep her company," Zach said with this forced smile. Celeste couldn't look me in the eye. "Zach brought me coffee from downtown? That's nice from him." Everything about the situation felt wrong. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every suspicious thing from the past few months kept running through my head. I started thinking about all the times Zach had stopped by when I wasn't home. All the extra shifts Celeste was supposedly working. All the cash withdrawals. When you lay it all out like that, the pattern becomes pretty obvious. Something was definitely wrong, and I was done turning a blind eye. The next morning, I decided to channel my inner Sherlock Holmes and figure out what the hell was going on. First stop was the company records, because Zach had access to job sites and vehicles through our fleet management system. I pulled the GPS logs for his work truck over the past 3 months and cross-referenced them with times and locations. What I found was absolutely mind-blowing. This guy had been making dozens of stops at places that had nothing to do with our solar installations. Multiple visits to my neighborhood during work hours. A hotel in Scottsdale that definitely wasn't on any of our project lists. Restaurants in areas where we had zero active jobs. Then I compared those dates with the shared calendar Celeste and I used for coordinating schedules. Every single time Zach's truck showed up near one of those suspicious locations, Celeste claimed to be covering an extra shift or handling some emergency at the hospital. Next, I went deeper into our bank account history. Those $200 Friday cash withdrawals weren't random. They were like clockwork for over 2 months. But I also found charges at restaurants and hotels in Scottsdale on days when Celeste claimed to be working overtime. I started keeping records of every discrepancy between her claimed schedule and our actual spending. When you put it all on paper, the pattern was so obvious, a blind person could see it. Time for the ultimate test. I called the hospital pretending to have a family emergency, needing to reach Celeste immediately. The nurse who answered told me Celeste wasn't on shift that day and hadn't been scheduled the day before either. According to Celeste, she'd worked 12 hours the previous night and had another 12-hour shift coming up. But according to the hospital, she wasn't even there. Then I checked her email. We'd shared passwords since our anniversary as this sweet gesture of trust. Thursday morning, I told Celeste I was staying home with a stomach bug. Once she left for her training session, I sat down at our computer. I logged into her email using our shared password, and right at the top of her inbox was an email thread between Celeste and my mom. The subject line read, "Make sure Silas doesn't find out." I literally felt my stomach drop into my shoes. I opened the thread and found 3 months of emails detailing every aspect of Celeste's relationship with Zach. The early February emails were cautious. Mom asking if Celeste was sure about what she was doing, warning her it might just be a phase. But the messages became increasingly detailed and calculated. My own mother was giving Celeste step-by-step instructions on how to lie to me, when to claim extra shifts, what excuses would sound believable. She even offered her house as a meeting place when Dad was playing golf or at the office. One email from March made me want to punch a hole through the wall. Samuel plays golf Thursdays until 6 p.m., so you have at least 4 hours. Zach can come in through the side garage entrance. I'll make sure the neighbors don't notice anything. Another one said, "Tell Silas you have a double shift Tuesday. Samuel has contractor meetings until 10 p.m., so the house will be empty. Zach already told his roommate he's staying at a job site overnight." Then came the emails about the pregnancy. In mid-April, Celeste confirmed to Mom that she was 8 weeks pregnant. They couldn't determine if the baby was mine or Zach's because the timing overlapped with both of us. Mom's response was sickening. Make him believe the baby is his. He'll be a better father than Zach anyway. What he doesn't know won't hurt him. When Celeste asked what would happen if I found out later, if the baby looked like Zach, Mom replied, "We'll handle that if it happens. For now, make everything look normal." I spent over 2 hours reading every single email, taking screenshots, saving the most damaging ones to a USB drive, and printing hard copies. They'd been planning to destroy my life for months, and they thought they were smart enough to get away with it. They thought I was too busy to figure it out. They were wrong. After the emails, I called Dad immediately. "I need to see you at the office right now. It's urgent and I can't discuss it over the phone." 20 minutes later, we were face to face in his office. I told him everything. He listened in complete silence. When he finally spoke, his voice was scary calm. "Meet me at Marcus's office in 2 hours. Don't talk to anyone until we have a plan." Marcus was our company lawyer. Dad had already called ahead, and Marcus cleared his entire afternoon for us. Marcus analyzed everything: emails, bank statements, GPS records, receipts, hospital schedules. His verdict was straightforward. With this documentation, we could move fast to protect everything I'd built. His instructions were clear. Secure all finances immediately. Safeguard assets. Document everything. And most importantly, don't confront anyone until the legal framework is bulletproof. First stop was the bank. I transferred $95,000 from our joint account to my personal account, leaving exactly $5,000 so it wouldn't look suspicious if she checked. I verified that my premarital investments, about $140,000 in retirement accounts and stocks, were properly registered as separate property with no chance of Celeste claiming them. While I was protecting my assets, Dad canceled Zach's access to company accounts and vehicles, effective immediately, told Linda, our office manager, that Zach was being reassigned and would no longer need his company truck, corporate card, or building access. Zach would discover all this Monday morning when his keycard didn't work and his truck wouldn't start. I also blocked all joint credit cards except one with a $2,000 limit to prevent any retaliation spending sprees. Removed Celeste as an authorized user on my personal cards. Every decision was cold, calculated, and completely legal. That night, while Celeste was showering, a text came through on her phone from Zach. "Can't wait for tomorrow at Mom's. Dad's working late, so we'll have the place to ourselves." Perfect timing. I took a screenshot and immediately sent it to Marcus. Just one more piece of evidence that the affair was ongoing and escalating. That's when I decided to go nuclear. I called Dad and asked him to organize a family dinner at my house for Saturday night. I didn't need to explain. Samuel knew exactly what was coming. He called Mom and Zach separately, telling them it was mandatory family dinner because I had a big announcement to share. Friday, I told Celeste about the dinner. I watched her whole body tense up. She started firing nervous questions. What kind of announcement? Why was I organizing family dinner when I usually avoided them? Should she prepare anything special? I told her I wanted to gather everyone to share some good news. Her face went pale. What kind of news? You're making me nervous. You'll find out Saturday. Saturday, April 29th. I prepared the dining room like a battlefield. Divorce papers in a manila envelope at my place setting. Another envelope with printed copies of the most incriminating emails for Dad to read. Mom arrived first. Immediately started asking about Celeste and the big announcement. Dad just looked at me knowingly without saying a word. Zach showed up 20 minutes late. Gave me that patronizing shoulder pat. During dinner, Celeste barely touched her food, just pushed it around while shooting nervous glances between Zach and me. Mom tried maintaining surface-level conversation about weather and church gossip, but the tension was so thick. When we finished eating, Dad raised his beer. Well, son, what's this big news you wanted to share? Right, about that. I pulled out the manila envelope and slid it towards Celeste. These are divorce papers. Dead silence. Only the air conditioner humming and some dog barking in the distance. Celeste went white as paper, hands shaking. What? What are you saying, Silas? Mom immediately went into full drama mode. Silas, what are you doing? Are you insane? Enough, Mom, I interrupted, handing Dad the second envelope. These are 3 months of emails between you and Celeste, covering her affair with Zach. Dad started reading. Even though he knew about it, reading her exact words hit different. Zach jumped up, knocking over his chair. You went through her emails? That's illegal. Is that what you're worried about? I replied in the calmest voice possible. Not that you've been screwing with my wife for months? Celeste covered her mouth, sobbing. Silas, please, just listen to me. Shut up, Celeste. I didn't even look at her. Dad, read the part where Mom suggests using your golf schedule so they could meet at the house. Mom lunged across the table, trying to grab the papers, but Dad held her back. Caroline, what the hell is this? He roared with fury that shook the house. Samuel, I can explain. Explain what? How you destroyed this family? How you turned one son against the other? How you've been lying to my face for months? Mom's saint act finally cracked. She pointed at Celeste. She came to me. She seduced Zach. I was just trying to prevent a family catastrophe. Zach, with complete shamelessness, just shrugged. Everyone needs to calm down. Silas works 70 hours a week. Celeste needed attention. I was there when he wasn't. That's when I completely lost it. I stood up, walked around the table, and punched him with everything I had. Felt his nose break instantly. Blood splattered all over his shirt as he hit the floor, taking a side table down with him. Mom screamed like someone was murdering her precious baby boy. Dad stood up like a mountain. Get him out of this house, now. Zach was lying on the floor, bleeding on my hardwood. Dad, you can't do this. You're fired. Funding cut. You're dead to me. Samuel, he's your son! Mom screamed through tears. Silas is my son. Zach proved today that blood means nothing when you betray your family. Celeste was sobbing uncontrollably. Silas, the baby could be yours. Please don't do this. Then we'll do a paternity test. Either way, this is over. You and I are done. Dad looked at Zach bleeding on my floor, then at Mom trying to help him up. His expression was ice cold. Zach, you owe me $20,000. You have 30 days to pay it back in full, or I'm taking you to court. The free ride is over. Caroline, get your coat. We're leaving. You and I have things to discuss. When they left, Celeste and I stood in silence, surrounded by the wreckage. What happens now? She asked. Pack what you can and get out of my house. You have until tomorrow morning to figure out where the hell you're going. Silas, please. Enough, I shouted. She nodded silently and went upstairs to gather her things. I was alone in the dining room for the first time in months, feeling something I hadn't experienced in forever. Peace. The divorce process moved fast. Thanks to all the evidence I'd gathered plus the prenup we'd signed before marriage, Celeste's lawyer basically showed up to the fight with a pool noodle while we brought a flamethrower. The prenup was ironclad. Everything I'd acquired before marriage stayed mine. The house, investments, business interests, all protected. She tried asking for spousal support, but Marcus shut that down immediately. Arizona might be a no-fault divorce state, but infidelity still matters when it comes to property division and financial support. Plus, she had a stable nursing income, and the prenup specifically limited any support claims. In the end, she walked away with her personal belongings, her car, and exactly nothing else. The house stayed mine. All my premarital investments remained untouched. She got to keep the consequences of her choices, which was a fair trade. The paternity test confirmed what I already knew. The baby wasn't mine. Celeste moved in with Melissa, that traveling nurse who'd been helping cover her fake shifts. From what I heard through mutual acquaintances, Melissa got tired of the drama real quick. Apparently, Celeste was unbearable, crying constantly, demanding attention 24/7, expecting her friend to cover all the expenses while she dealt with being a pregnant single woman. 6 weeks later, Melissa kicked her out. Meanwhile, Dad followed through on every threat he'd made. Zach was permanently fired and banned from any company property. But Dad didn't stop there. He contacted other solar installation companies in the Phoenix area. And in this industry, word travels fast. Dad also cut off all financial support. No more BMW payments, no credit cards, no emergency cash bailouts. And that $20,000 debt? Dad wasn't letting that slide. He gave Zach exactly 30 days to pay it back in full, and when Zach tried to negotiate or make excuses, Dad's response was simple. Pay up or I'm taking you to court. Your choice. Celeste kept trying to contact me. I blocked her everywhere and had security escort her off company property when she tried the ambush approach. The final straw was this long email where she blamed me for her betrayal. It was my fault for being too focused on work and not meeting her emotional needs. 6 weeks after that dinner from hell, Dad filed for divorce. At 58 years old, he was done supporting a dishonest wife. Mom completely lost it when she realized he wasn't going to forgive and forget. The divorce process was brutal with zero concessions. Dad kept the business, the house, and most assets. Mom, after 15 years of not working, had to take a job at a department store making $12 an hour, dealing with customers who treated her exactly the way she used to treat service workers. Justice has a sense of humor sometimes. Zach moved in with her into a 2-bedroom apartment on the sketchy side of town. He tried coming back several times, apologizing and begging for his old job back. Dad's response never changed. You chose to betray your blood. Now get what you deserve. It's been 2 years since everything went down, and man, karma has been working overtime. Dad and I are closer than we've ever been. He made me a partner in the company with a 40% stake. We've expanded into commercial developments in Tucson and Vegas, and business is absolutely booming. But here's where things get really interesting. About 6 months ago, I heard through industry contacts that Zach had gotten himself into serious legal trouble. Turns out, after burning through every legitimate job opportunity in Phoenix, he'd started taking out personal loans using fake employment information. Multiple loans from different companies, all based on lies about his income and employment status. The guy was pulling in maybe $15 an hour at various temp jobs, but claiming to make $60,000 annually at solar companies that had blacklisted him years ago. When the loan companies started comparing notes and doing background checks, they discovered the fraud. Last I heard, Zach's facing federal charges for loan fraud and could be looking at 3 to 5 years in prison. He never did pay back that $20,000 either. Dad took him to civil court and got a judgment, but you can't squeeze blood from a stone. Zach's broke, unemployed, facing federal charges, and living in a studio apartment that probably costs more than he makes in a month. Now about Mom, let's say she got slapped with something she never saw coming. About 4 months ago, she was diagnosed with leukemia, advanced stage, aggressive type, the kind where doctors start talking about time remaining. The woman who spent years poisoning family relationships ended up with her own blood betraying her. Here's the thing though, when you systematically destroy every relationship in your life, you end up facing hard times alone. Dad had already moved on. My relationship with Mom was done the moment I found those emails. Zach, her precious golden child who she'd enabled and defended for years, barely visits her. When you're facing federal prison time, you don't have much time for dealing with a dying parent. I heard from a neighbor that Mom's been trying to reach out to Dad and me, claiming she wants to make things right before she dies. But some bridges, once you burn them completely, can't be rebuilt with deathbed apologies. Dad's response when she tried to contact him was simple. She made her choices. Now she gets to live with them, however much time she has left. I haven't responded to any of her attempts to reach out. The woman who spent months helping my wife plan my destruction doesn't get to play the victim card now that she's dying. Well, mostly I haven't responded. There was one memorable exception about 8 months ago. That was the last time I ever saw her. I was at home on a Saturday morning, enjoying my coffee when someone started pounding on my front door. I looked through the peephole and saw Mom standing there, looking like she'd been dragged through hell. She'd clearly been drinking. It was 10 a.m., and she was swaying on her feet. I opened the door, and before I could say anything, she launched into me. "You selfish piece of shit!" She screamed loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear. "You destroyed this family! You ruined everything! You're drunk. Get off my property. Don't you dare tell me what to do. This is all your fault. Zach's in trouble because of you. My marriage is over because of you. I'm alone because of you. You want to know what really happened, Mom? You chose your golden child over your family. You helped him betray me because you thought he deserved what I'd worked for. You picked sides, and you picked wrong. That's not true. I was trying to protect everyone." "Protect everyone? You were protecting Zach from consequences, like you always did." She was crying now, but still trying to blame me. "He's your brother. Family forgives. Family helps each other. How can your heart let you watch me suffer like this? Family doesn't stab each other in the back. You heartless bastard." "You know what, Mom? You don't even deserve to be called a mother. You think you can get my sympathy after everything you've done? Wrong. Even if you were dying, I will never forgive you. Do you understand?" Her face went white, even drunk and unhinged. That one hit home. "Get off my property. Don't come back. I don't want to see your face ever again." "Silas, please." I shut the door and locked it. She stood there pounding and crying for another 10 minutes before finally giving up and leaving. I never heard from her again until I got the news of her getting cancer. But the moment that really drove everything home happened about 3 weeks ago. I was working late at the office, finishing up some electrical schematics for a new commercial installation, when I heard someone knocking on the front door around 9 p.m. I looked outside and saw him, Zach in a beat-up car. When I opened the door, I barely recognized him. He'd lost a lot of weight, looked like a ghost, his clothes were wrinkled and dirty, his eyes were red like he hadn't slept for days. "Silas," he said, his voice cracking, "I need to talk to you, brother. Please. We don't have anything to talk about. I'm going to prison. I could get 5 years." He was shaking, barely holding it together. "I know I messed up. I know I destroyed everything. But you're my brother. You're the only one who can help me." "Help you? Why would I?" I almost laughed. "I was stupid, okay? I was jealous of everything you had. The house, the respect from Dad, the perfect marriage. I wanted what you had, and I took it the worst way possible." He started crying like a baby. "I'm sorry, Silas. I'm so fucking sorry. I'll do anything to make this right. But please don't push me away. You're my only hope. There is no making this right. Please, Mom's dying alone. Dad won't even look at me. You're all I have left. I'll pay you back every penny. I'll work for free. I'll sign over anything I own." I stared at him for a long moment, this pathetic shell of the brother I used to know. Part of me almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "You didn't just betray me. You tried to trick me into raising your kid? I know. It was wrong. Everything was wrong. But we're family. No." I stepped closer, my voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "We never were. Silas, please." "You made your choice. Now live with it." I started closing the door, then stopped. "And Zach, don't ever come here again. We're no brothers anymore." I shut the door. Through the glass, I watched him stand there for maybe 5 minutes, sobbing like a child. Finally, he got back in his car and drove away. 2 weeks later, he was arrested at his apartment. The trial's set for next month. The most satisfying part of all this? I didn't have to plot or scheme or waste years of my life trying to get back at them. The truth handled everything. I just needed to protect myself. Sometimes the best response to betrayal is walking away and watching karma doing its magic. These days, I focus on what actually matters. The business is crushing it. I've got my house, my investments, my self-respect, and my peace of mind. Meanwhile, Mom's dying alone. Zach's headed to prison. Celeste's struggling to survive as a single mother. If anyone reading this is dealing with something similar, here's my advice. Document everything, protect your assets, and don't waste energy trying to save people who are actively trying to destroy you.